Okay, so I know you guys get a lot of questions about our sustainability program here on the Santa Margarita Ranch. As you can see behind me, the vineyards are here. We're down in the southern part of the ranch. And today I want to tell you a little bit about our sustainability program. When this ranch was planted back at the turn of the century, the Mondavis were big on sustainability, and as a matter of fact, the Central Coast Vineyard Team Sustainability and Practice program, which we follow, was started here with a lot of the programs that were started here on the ranch. So we can be proud of the fact that we're still participating in that program today, and why we have on our bottle this SIP stamp of approval from the sustainability program. So there are three legs of the stool. There's the environment, which we practice heavily here with cover crops. We have birds of prey that take care of rodents and that sort of thing. We have a release program for wildcats and bird boxes, owl boxes, bat boxes. So we have lots of insects that are taken down by natural predators. Also, we, in the environmental portion, we have filter strips so that when it rains here, we don't have significant erosion, and the water that comes on the ranch generally will leave here in a clean state because of these filter strips that are planted in between the rows. We maintain separation from creeks and waterways so that it allows those filter strips to take sediment out before the water returns to the streams that end up in Monterey Bay. So the environment's very important. The second leg of the stool is the human factor, and we make sure that the people that work here have a safe environment to work in, that they have all the necessary tools they need to do the job here to grow grapes for us that make the wine that you guys are going to sell. And also that they're well paid and they have insurance and they're looked after. And I can tell you that from Jaime, who was here in the original planting, to Stuart, who started as a barrel rat out in the winery 10 years ago, and Amanda as well. People hire on here and they stay here in their management because of the way we treat our people. And that's an important part of the stool, of the three-legged stool of sustainability. The third leg is where you come in. This is what's really important, because if you don't make a profit in business, you go broke. And if you're broke, you can't sustain anything, because it's not part of the life of sustainability. So the third part is you actually have to make a profit, and that's why your job is so important, to be able to make that happen. So some of the parts of the sustainable program here, I told you about the boxes with the birds and the insects and the filter strips, etc. But also what's important here is our water conservation. We're really fortunate that the Santa Margarita Ranch here gets some of the most rainfall annually, so we can dry farm a lot of these blocks. We use minimal amount of water irrigating, where we use a minimal amount of water frost protecting. You'll see fans out in the vineyards. When you go through the vineyards, you'll see that we have these big fans that move air, and that air is warmer up high and cooler down low. So we'll move the warm air down to protect the grapes so that they'll survive during the freezing season. So that's really important. We've got a lot of solar projects here on the ranch. So we have a sustainable electricity program where we're creating more power than we use, and that's important because many of the pumps here run on electricity that we use for our water. So we save water, we're saving on power generation, and we're saving lots of water up at the winery. Our winery has a wastewater facility that we process all the water that we use to make the wine from these grapes. And in the end, we end up with clear water that we can use to landscape the facility, which used to have a separate meter. And so all that water that goes through the winery ends up being usable. We're a zero net user of water at the winery now. And we're currently installing solar panels on the winery so that we can also be net neutral on power generation at the winery. And that's an important part of sustainability. Another big question for you guys is the varietal composition out at the ranch here and the size of the vineyard. The size of the vineyard is just under 1,000 acres. It's what I call the largest boutique vineyard in the industry. Every one of these blocks has multiple sites of water, so that some blocks we may water with 3 different water programs, which is important so that you're not overwatering in one place or another. And we manage these blocks where we'll pick the grapes sometimes 3 and 4 different times out of the same block. So the varieties that we grow, there are 16 different varieties. We grow everything from Cabernet to Zinfandel. As you know, you see them in the vineyard there, but we're primarily a Bordeaux ranch here. It's our focus. Cabernet, Merlot, Petit Verdot, Malbec, and Cab Franc. They're all grown here, and it's a unique place where you can grow Chardonnay and Cabernet and Zinfandel all on the same property. So one of the things that we focus on is making sure that all these varietals taste like they're supposed to. So Cab tastes like Cabernet, Syrah tastes like Syrah, Zinfandel tastes like Zinfandel. Varietal correctness is important to us here. And a big part of that is the way that the grapes are grown here on the ranch. Part of the life of the vineyard here in the spring, we're in the springtime now, you don't see leaves behind me. That's because we have not had bud break yet. But the way the vineyard rolls here is we start out in the spring with pruning. We'll prune all these vines in 2 different manners, one cane pruned, one cordon pruned, and we do both here. Different varieties do better with different pruning style. And then from then we get the growth going into the spring. We'll make it through frost by using our frost protection I told you about. And then as we get leaf growth, we'll see flowering. The flowers turn into baby grape clusters. Those will grow as they mature through July and August. They'll ripen. We'll have veraison take place, which means that green grapes turn red or dark ruby colored. So that's called veraison. That usually happens in the summertime, and it depending on the year. And then we roll into harvest, and then the grapes are picked here, and we pick both by hand and by machine. And we primarily use Poulenc machines, which only pick berries and juice when we pick by machine. They're very gentle on the plants, and they produce the best wines because there are not a lot of mog, which is material other than grapes. When those grapes are then delivered to our winery in Paso, and processed. Final thing in the vineyard then is to put the vineyard to rest for the winter. So we'll give it a big shot of water if it's dry at that time, and then we will put it to rest. And the whole process will start all over again in January. Through harvest, we will use machines and hand harvest. And typically the hand harvesting is for the higher end wines that we produce, all the white label Pearl collection, and then the machine pick, because we use a selective head which dumps the trash off into the vineyard, so all those organics stay in the vineyard, and then just berries and juice end up in the winery. And the selective head will pick out green grapes when you want red, and they'll drop these impurities off the side. And that's typically for the rest of our program. So all the rest of the wines that you have on the shelf there are picked with the Poulenc selective head. You know, it's been now 20 years since I started to plant this vineyard, and we've been farming it now for 15 years. And the thing that excites me the most when I come out here is it's different every day. Every time I come out here, it's different, and it's always changing. It's a living creature, and you never know what you're going to run into. You might see a bear, or you might see a bald eagle, and it's a lot of fun to come out here and live this life, this dream.